Welcome to the Birth Lounge podcast, an empowering space for expecting and new parents to hear candid conversations with experts, support your mental health, and learn the tips and tricks that thousands of parents have used to craft their ideal birth. We will answer all of your questions, the scary ones and the weird ones, to help calm your fears and feel confident going into your birth. I'm going to help you redefine what birth and motherhood looks like and how to embrace your journey. I've intentionally crafted a list of experts to help you navigate pregnancy, explore your birth options, and plan for postpartum so that it can be a time of soaking in your tiny human. We're going to go there on all the hard topics so that you can dive deep into finding your confidence and freeing yourself from fears around birth. With over 10 years of experience in family education and a master's degree in human development and family studies, I created this podcast as a way to share the resources parents need to make educated and informed decisions about their care in pregnancy and childbirth. This is a birth community driven by evidence-based information and research in hopes to help you explore your options, understand your rights, and know what choices you have along the way when it comes to birth and beyond. I'm your host, HeHe, and let's get to the good stuff. Hello, have you heard about my completely free class that teaches you 6 evidence-based ways to avoid a C-section and reduce your tearing in labor by up to 50%? And remember, I mentioned it was completely free. This class is going to teach you how to advocate for your preferences in the birth room so that you can have a birth that's filled with joy and not birth trauma. Advocating for yourself starts with being empowered with the right information so that you can ask the right questions and confidently make decisions during labor based on what feels good to you and your baby. But here's the thing. The U.S. has one of the highest C-section rates in the world, and it is ever climbing year after year. And it's not because the system is broken, albeit it is, but it's really because women don't have the tools to navigate that broken system. We may not be able to change the system before you have your baby, but what we can do is change how you operate within that system. Change the conversations that you're having with your providers. Change the places that you are getting your information to help you have informed conversation with your doctor before you have your baby. I want to teach you how to do that. We know the reasons that our C-section rates are climbing. We know the reasons that inductions happen so often, and we know the reasons that babies end up in the NICU. I want to help you avoid all of that so that you can have a birth that you love. You can find my free class at thebirthlounge.com/C-section so that you can learn 6 evidence-based ways to avoid a C-section and reduce your tearing in labor. Again, that is thebirthlounge.com/C-section. See you there. Bye. Hello, and welcome back to another episode of the Birth Lounge podcast. All right, you guys, I am always so honored to have all of the guests that I have on the show. This show has been one of the biggest pride points for me. It is such an honor to be able to talk to every single guest, but today's guest is not only a good friend of mine, but she is also a former client. Today we're going to be diving into hospital breech birth, which I did not attend because it happened in a different country, and then how she came to this country and was really shocked at our healthcare system. She quickly found that the support and autonomy and access to midwifery care that she had been used to was, in fact, not the same here in America. I'm so excited to have on Katherine Debs today. She is one of my very best friends, both personally and professionally. And today you're going to hear a story of complete triumph. She had her first baby in Canada, where the system looks kind of similar, but also in many regards, very different. Katherine felt very supported in her first birth, which was actually a breech delivery in the hospital system. She achieved it unmedicated and was thrilled with the outcome. Fast forward a couple years, they had moved their family to the United States, and she found herself pregnant again. Yet, when she entered our healthcare system, she was sorely disappointed by the lack of support and what she found to be really dismissive care. It's an absolute honor to have her on the show to not only share her birth story so that you can hear how you can take control of your birth, how you can find your voice, how you can have a similar experience to Katherine, but also for her to share the pivotal support and benefits of having a doula at your birth. I know I'm biased, so this is by no means unbiased advice, but if you have the access to a doula and you have the means to have a doula at your birth, I absolutely highly encourage you to do so because I think it can make all the difference. Unfortunately, our current medical system in the US is not set up for you to have a confident and informed autonomous birth where you are the driver, you are the captain of that ship, and a doula can absolutely make that a reality for you. So with great honor and great pleasure, without further ado, Katherine, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
Of course. It's always so much fun to have one of my besties on the show. I obviously get the opportunity to interview really cool people and high power people and just academics and medical professionals, but having one of my besties on the show just feels so good. It's so different. It is just a different experience. So thanks for joining me. Obviously, I'm so excited to have you here. I think a place that I would really like to start is having you compare and contrast your different experiences going through two different hospital systems. So you've had a baby in the Canadian healthcare system and in the American healthcare system. And you've lived in both of those places for many years. So it wasn't like you just went to one of those countries and had a baby. So you were familiar with the country, you were familiar with the healthcare, and you had your babies in those two different healthcares. Let's start there. Now, of course, listeners, obviously it's different because one of the babies was head down, one of the babies was breech. So that'll change your experience a little bit. But I think it would be helpful for especially our American listeners to hear the differences in the healthcare system and how it is as a patient going through those systems and how they're different.
Yeah, it's funny because growing up, you get married and you want to become a mom, and you have this idea of what your birth is going to look like, and ends up the way you expect.
Nothing goes to plan.
Nothing goes the way it's planned. Yes, I lived in Montreal for 10 years, and my first daughter was born there. And right away, right off the bat, I knew I wanted to have her at the birthing center. I wanted a water birth. It's just something that meant so much to me. But up there, because of the way the medical system works, there's no guarantee you can get into a birthing center because there's just such a long wait to get in. And I'd say the first doctor I was referred to, I was not happy with. I worked in a very negative environment at work, and so I was under a lot of stress, and she didn't believe me with that. So I didn't have a very positive experience with that particular doctor. So when I had put my name in for the birthing center and they called me like a couple weeks later, I cried on the phone because I knew that I needed people who just understood me and saw me and heard what I had to say. And I couldn't have asked for a better midwife team that I had. I feel so blessed that I got to get in, or just so early in my pregnancy. I think I was early in my second trimester, and then I just had an amazing team. They were just so loving and so welcoming, and it just felt like I was home. You know what I mean? It just felt like I was home. I felt like I was heard. I felt like I was held. And especially being like a new mom to be, right? That's always a scary experience because I didn't have any family up in Montreal. So it was me and my husband. So it wasn't like I had my mom. I could go to her home and just have her support there. But later on into the pregnancy, we realized that my oldest Zelda was breech. It was still early on that you could do different things to try to turn the baby, which I was super open to. And first of all, her feet were to the bottom. So that was going to be an automatic C-section just for safety reasons. And then they said we could try to do a version, and then there's acupuncture that you could do. So of course I tried the acupuncture, and then that helped move her feet up, and then her bum was to the bottom. So at least we knew I could have a natural birth because that was also very important for me. And then I was transferred over to the Saint Justine Hospital in Montreal because they were the only hospital in Montreal that will deliver a natural breech. Every other hospital would have been an automatic C-section. And so I also feel blessed that I had that kind of not far from where I lived, right up the street from the birthing center. And I remember walking into the doctor the first time I met him, and I looked at him, I said, "Don't try to convince me to have a C-section. I don't want it. Unless it's like a medical emergency, like I want a natural birth." And it's funny because my mom had my oldest brother breech as well back in 1982, and she had a natural birth, and that went perfectly fine. And I did the acupuncture, so they knew I could have a natural birth. And he also tried to physically turn the baby, and that was probably one of the most painful experiences of my life. I can't say I don't recommend that because that's not my place to tell people what to do. I don't think I would ever do that again because it's super painful and very uncomfortable, especially like the first time with a baby in your tummy and you're trying to physically turn. It's just, it was uncomfortable. Anyway, lo and behold, I did end up having Zelda there and I had a natural birth. And in my case, it was induced because, of course, you're in the hospital. Of course, the medical system wants to push you to have the baby ASAP. And that was the only thing I regret, I would say, is actually having an induction because I didn't need it medically. The baby was healthy, I was healthy. And, but it was slight pressure from the medical team to just, I had my midwife there, but she wasn't the one making the medical decisions. So that, and I didn't want an epidural either, again, just because that, the idea of not feeling my body or being in control of my body freaked me out a lot. And I'm very in tune with my body. So I knew that wasn't something I wanted to go through that full experience. So not having an epidural and being induced and a breech baby, that's like a trifecta that isn't pretty common at all. But she came and she was super healthy and I went home the next day. I just need to get out of the hospital and go home. What was cool about Canada was midwives were treated seriously. They weren't just a support system, right? So for 6 weeks after a baby, they came to your home and they checked on the baby and they weighed the baby and they did all of the things that you would typically do as a new mom here, having to drag yourself and your new baby to your pediatrician, your doctor's office. So that was really nice to have that support system because as a new mom, I don't want to get out of the house. I want to stay in my own little cute, little comfortable space. And just having someone come to my home just felt so much more comfortable. So I feel lucky in that sense that I had that support system. Fast forward 5 years later, we're here in the States. And I met you before, obviously. I was pregnant when I met you. I was pregnant with Jade, and you and I just obviously became instant friends. So,
Instantly.
oh,
We
literally.
met, and then by the end of that evening, we were like, are we best friends now? I think we are.
And also, I think here I had Jade at the Beverly Birthing Center because that was the closest. We lived in Andover at the time, and that was the closest I could find that could give me that support and the water birth and all of that.
Pause
And
right here, Catherine. I want to give people, our listeners, just a little idea of what the Beverly Birthing Center is, which now it's closed, and that's so
close.
unfortunate.
Yeah.
But this is a true birthing center here in Massachusetts. It was in the parking lot of a hospital, but it was a separate building. When you walked in, it looked like a home. It looked like a house. The
Yeah.
beds were not hospital beds. They were queen size beds. The
Yeah.
tubs were not tubs in the hospital. They were regular tubs, like what you would find in someone's home. And it was so beautiful and homey and lovely. And it was such a disservice to women in New England, specifically Massachusetts. And it was such a sad, tragic loss for our families here when they closed it. And we did a lot of work. We wrote letters, we called, we protested gently. It was very calm and gentle protest right outside, but we worked really hard to keep that birthing center alive and up and running. And the state closed it anyway. They would not listen to us.
It's really sad because the birthing center in Montreal where I was, similar feel. It felt like a home. It was much bigger. It was over two
Mm.
floors, so it was a much bigger space, but it felt that homey. So when I walked into the birthing center here, I just felt so calm and comforted because the team was amazing. The difference between here and there was up there, I had a dedicated midwife and she had her assistant, which was also a midwife. And they were the same ones throughout. And they were the ones that would be there with my birth. Whereas here, you never knew who was going to be with you throughout your birth. So you got to see different midwives when you came for your checkups, which was something that I didn't necessarily love about the system here because you build that relationship. And giving birth is such a personal experience. And you want people there that you know and trust, obviously, other than just your husband or your partner or your family or whatever. So that part was something I had to get used to. And then you're like, I hope that this person is there when I give birth. When in my case, I got who I wanted, which was really cool. But then I realized that it's not the midwives obviously do the whole process like they do up in Canada, but you don't get that support system afterwards. And when you and I met, it was like you were an angel that came into my life. I was like, oh my gosh, I need you there. Like, you need to be there. And you and I work together, obviously, just as your services as a doula. And I just want to add like a little kind of asterisk and say, having HeHe there, just she knows her shit. Excuse my language, but she knows what she's doing. She has a gift that I haven't seen anybody have. Whether you have children or not, it didn't matter because it's just, this was just a gift that you were born with. So you're meant to do this. And I'm so we're both, I know we're both tearing up, but it's such a personal journey. And just to have you there as not just my friend, but as someone I trusted medically to help support me and help me know what my rights are. And my fear was that I couldn't give birth at the birthing center, so I couldn't have that experience because, again, the system here is if someone's available, you can have it at the birthing center. It depends on when you go into labor. Otherwise, you would have to have it in the hospital, which I didn't want because I've just spent so many years of my life in and out of hospitals with my grandparents being sick over the years and stuff. And I don't have very positive experience in hospitals. So if I could avoid that as much as I possibly can, unless it's an emergency, then yes, I would do that. And we lived in an apartment, so we were renting. So it wasn't like our home where I could have a home birth. It just wasn't a space that I felt attached to. So I would rather have it in a medical supported space. So anyway, so when I had Jade, I was 9 days past due because, again, I had a support system that taught me to listen to my body and just really honored that. And I didn't want to push her to come out when she wasn't ready. And I remember being 9 days past due. We went to the fair in Topsfield that day. I kid you not, I'm a crazy person. So I went up the slide with Zelda, those big, huge slides that you sit on a
I remember
sack.
that.
And the guy, like, I'm like 9 days, I'm 8 days past due at this point. And the guy, I'm halfway up the stairs, and the guy looks at me, he's like, are you sure you want to go down the slide? I'm like, trust me. He's, please just don't have the baby here. I said, don't worry, but I really need to do this. So I went down the slide, we went up the Ferris wheel, and then I went home that day. I didn't feel anything. And I remember my mom was supposed to sleep over at our house that night, and then she was working late. So I said to her, don't worry, just stay home. She lives 10 minutes away, so it was fine. And my daughter, my oldest daughter, woke up at 1:30 in the morning, which is not something she ever does. Like, she doesn't wake up in the middle of the night. And she came over to me and she says, Mom, where's Nana? She's supposed to be here because she was supposed to be there and sleep with her and stuff like that. And I said, oh, it's okay, baby cakes. Like, we'll see her tomorrow. And she went back to bed. And 30 minutes later, I woke up with 3-minute apart contractions. At first, I was like, ooh, what is that? Because I was induced with Zelda. My water broke with my first, and it gushed out. They tell you it doesn't happen when you're standing, but it does. And quick funny story, we were in Montreal. I had family coming to visit because, of course, like the first girl, all of that. And I had people from out of town, overseas, all of that. And my apartment looked like Home Alone. Water broke. We were about to go down. It was a gorgeous weekend. It was like the most beautiful weather in end of September. And we were supposed to go to the old port for the day. And I'm like, okay, let me go to the bathroom and then we'll go. And as soon as I stepped into the bathroom, my water broke. And I'm standing there in the shower. And all I see in my house are people running like Home Alone, like back and forth, left and right. And I'm totally calm here, right? And
I
I'm like,
imagine the scene from Office where he's like, it's happening, it's happening.
And my mom was so worried because she had we're five kids, but she had all of us without really feeling much. Like she got to the hospital and the baby came out. So she was worried that would happen with me, especially that's all those breech. So I'm there and I'm telling everybody, guys, I'm the one who's supposed to be stressing out, not you. So anyway, so we always talk about that because it was really a funny scene. But anyway, when I came here with Jade, I didn't know what that felt like because I didn't feel that kind of labor pain with Zelda until I was induced because I wasn't feeling anything, even though my water broke and several hours later until I was induced. With Jade, I had to, oh, what is that feeling? Is that, I don't know, it's like weird stomach pains, but I didn't know it was labor. So then I called you right away. And you're like, okay, let's call the midwife. And then as I'm on the phone, I'm like, wait, like this is happening very fast. And I started timing them. And I remember telling you, they're like 3 minutes apart.
Yeah.
And you're like, holy moly, we need to go. And so we had to call my mom in the middle of the night and have her rush to our apartment to stay with Zelda because we lived in Andover and Beverly was 40 minutes away.
Nope.
And
And I
so,
was even further. I was
and
like
you were, yeah,
15 minutes away. Yeah.
we all hopped in the car. My mom had just gotten, I'm like, I can't talk. I need to go because things were starting to move very fast. And we're in the car and contractions are coming. And I'm like, oh my gosh, this is really happening. And my husband was driving like 80, 90 miles an hour with blinkers on. I mean, if anybody lives in Boston, and you drive up 128.95, there's always traffic. So had it happened in the middle of the day, I probably would have had Jade in the car.
Oh yeah, you would have had a car
Luckily, it
for
happened in the
sure.
middle of the night because there was no traffic. And from the moment we got to the birthing center till Jade was born was 20 minutes on the dot. Like it was crazy
Fast.
fast. So we got there. Obviously, you got there well as soon as we got there. The midwife also got there right away because she lived not too far away. Filled the bathtub up. As soon as I sat in that bathtub, I don't know, I just felt like a complete release from my body. It was the most relaxing, calming feeling I've ever felt. And I had four contractions, and I remember looking at you and I'm saying her head is coming out. And everyone's like, there's no way. Like, it just can't, like, it's so fast. I'm like, no, I have to push. And I pushed three times and she came out.
And you got your water birth that you didn't
And
get
I
the
got my
first
water
time.
birth. Yeah. And I remember the midwife pushed Jade from the back and I held her in my hands and like, she came out and she was just shy of 9 pounds. This is not a tiny baby. She was 9 days cooking in there. And if you see her today, she's tiny. But I don't know. I think when I left there and I started to reflect back and I thought, oh, every woman should have that experience, that feeling of being in that water. I don't know. It's like your body just knows. It just took all of the stress away. It just calmed me down completely. I was so zen. And we'll tell a quick funny story because my husband was there, obviously, and he's amazing. But my husband runs like a furnace. He's very hot. And when contractions are happening and things are moving fast and you're pushing and this and you're like, you just can't think. And I remember I was like, I need someone's hand. And he gave me his hand, and his hand was way too hot. I was like, no, I need HeHe's hand. And your hands were freezing like they always are. And he's okay. And he just stood there and watched the whole, like, us women do our thing, which I think is so magical, right? Yes, he was there and all of it, but I just feel like just seeing that dynamic of women coming together to experience such a moment, I think for me, oh, I couldn't have asked for a better birth. I just couldn't have asked for anything better. It happened so fast, which at first I was like, oh, we had all these things planned. We had candles, we had a music list going, and I never got to use any of it. So part of me was like slightly disappointed a little bit, but at the same time, I realized like it happened so perfectly. And then 4 hours later, I was back home.
And that for me is so incredible that birth can happen like that. And I agree that everybody deserves that. For me, something that sticks out about your birth is how much your birth room was filled with love. You could literally feel the love in your birth room. You could feel your love for yourself, for your baby, for this process. You could feel your midwife's love. You could feel Kareem's love for you. You could feel my love for you. You could feel the love that you had for everybody in that room. Everybody in that room loved this baby that we had never even met before. There was no fear. There was no tension. There was no egos. There was nothing but love in your birth room. And it was just so special. For me, your birth tops the charts of all so many births that I've been to because it was so perfect and just angelic and gentle and empowering. And you could see how it transformed everybody. I'm just thinking back now, like you could see the transformation that your midwife went through. I transformed as a doula. You obviously transformed as a mom. I could see your husband transform. It was just so cool to be in this space, sharing that experience with everybody there. And that's something that a lot of women, most women, don't get in their births when they birth in the hospital system.
Yeah. And my first birth, also, I forgot to mention, because it was a breech birth, I had to deliver in the OR, even though me and baby were perfectly healthy. So I was on my back, legs up, and I had about 20 student doctors in that OR because that was not something they're probably ever going to experience again, having someone not go through an epidural, be induced, and have a breech baby at the same time. And I remember Kareem was holding my right side and like my right arm, and then the midwife was holding my left. And I was exhausted from pushing. I didn't think I could push anymore. Like
I remember
literally,
you telling me that you were like roaring,
because it
screaming
was
your baby out.
when you're induced, it's so out of body. It's so uncontrollable. You don't you're not in tune with your body. You can't because something else is controlling that. And Zelda, even though she was so tiny, she had a big head, so I had to have an episiotomy as well. And so there was just so many things, just like I had this whole birthing thing planned and none of it was on there. You know what I mean? And but I remember my midwife like just holding my hand and saying, "You can do it. I believe in you and you can do it." And then I pushed Zelda out and she came out, and but it was a very different experience. I was so exhausted. I was just like ready to give up at the end. But it's just amazing what a woman's body can go through, the power that we have inside of us. Man, it's powerful. It's
Look, I don't do this work because I am particularly like in love with birth or the process of birth. I do this work because women never fail to amaze me. It is amazing to watch a woman transform from the beginning of their pregnancy to the end, to then meet themselves in a new light during labor, and then to find themselves in motherhood. Women are just phenomenal creatures. I have said it before, but we are superior. And I'll never, ever not say that. Women are superior. We are the whole reason that humans exist. We're the whole reason that birth is a thing. And women just rock. I do this work because I love women.
I love that so much. And yeah. And I grew up with four brothers. I didn't have sisters growing up. And my husband grew up with just a brother, and they didn't have any girls in the family. And so when my oldest was born, she was the first girl in 60 years in my husband's family. And then both of our brothers had boys. So nobody believed I was going to have a girl, even though my mom's side of the family's all girls. So my husband and I dreamed of having two girls. That was our dream, both of us. And even if we had a boy, it was fine. But it's just because we were always surrounded by such male energy. And I just wanted to have a daughter, and I wanted my daughter to have a sister because I never had that. And so just to be able to just have that dream come true, you know what I mean? It just, oh, I don't know, it just made the experience so much more magical, at least for us. You know what I mean?
You've always been a very powerful manifester. When you manifest something, it
Yeah,
comes true. And that's just like who you are as a human. I think it's one of the reasons why you and I click so well. And it's one of the reasons I'm so drawn to you as a friend is you are a powerful being in terms of like when you set your mind to something, it's going to happen. You're going to get it.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah.
I say it because that is the truth. I've known you for several years now, and I've watched that come true. Every time you've ever told me, I'm going to do this, or I'm going to get this, or I want this, I'm like, okay, let's coming her way. She's going to get it, or it's going to happen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's fun. It's a fun process. I don't know. I think because I've been through so much in my life growing up overseas during a war, just fighting my way through my whole life. And then over time, just learning to trust myself
Hmm.
and not look outwards for my answers anymore, but actually look inwards. And that was a long process to get to. That was a very long process to fully trust myself and just know that whatever I want, whatever I need is all within me. That power is within me. But it's funny because even though I grew up in hard times, I look back and I was a really powerful manifester even as a child because I look back at things and I'm like, holy moly, I just knew it's just people around me didn't understand. They
Hmm.
didn't understand. And I see that in my kids today so much. So they are powerful manifestors. Oh my gosh. It's so crazy. They are so just, yeah, there's a lot of energy in our home.
Yeah, I
Good,
relate to that.
good
I
stuff. Yeah.
relate to being a kid and manifesting things. And of course, as a child, you don't know what that is. You don't
No.
know that you're manifesting. You don't know the power that your mind has. But I realized looking back over my childhood and even as a young adult, the things that I would want and I would go after, they would happen for me. And it wasn't by happenstance. You and I are not talking about luck.
Yeah.
We're talking about truly putting in the hard work, doing the steps every day. You get up, you check another thing off of your list to get you one step closer to your goal, and you trust. So, talk to us a little bit about trusting yourself because I think that's something that I don't think that is something that so many people, especially women, struggle with trusting yourself. There's so many times in pregnancy and birth that we hand over our power because we don't have that confidence in ourselves. We don't believe that we know the answer. We trust a system. We trust tests, procedures, ultrasounds. We give away our power. Talk to us about how did you cultivate that within yourself? And also, how did you hang on to that in a time where you had medical systems telling you you can't do this or you have to do this or that may not be possible?
It started with being a victim in my life, just having gone through so much hardship and realizing one day that wasn't going to get me where I wanted to go.
Mm.
It doesn't take away all the hard things that happened, but it doesn't serve me to stay in that place, right? Anymore. And I was in my 20s and I realized, you know what? And I had a lot of influence around me, and it wasn't always very positive influence because it was always like that person's agenda, what that person wanted from me, what that person needed from me for them and for their own well-being and for their own benefit. It was never about me and who I was. And I'm very proud of where I came from. I'm very proud of my family. My mom was American, my dad was Lebanese. I was born and raised in Lebanon. I got to grow up in one of the most beautiful places in the world. Got to eat literally the best food you could ever eat. Things I never appreciated growing up, but it wasn't until I left that I really started to appreciate them. And it wasn't until I came here. So I moved here, I went to college here, and I was working full time. And there was someone around me that was like, people don't need to know where you're from because that person was trying to hide who he was.
Mhm.
That person was trying to hide where they were from so that the people wouldn't judge him. And for me, that was a big turning point in my life. That's when I realized, no, I will not hide who I am to make you comfortable. I am going to be who I am and I'm going to show up as I am. And actually, what I realized was by me being myself and sharing what my background, I started to draw people to me because people love to learn that and they love to hear about that, right? But
Me, yeah.
even as a 19, 20-year-old, who knew about this stuff, right? Today, we're so much more aware of these things, but as a 19, 20-year-old trying to find my way, I started to draw people to me because I was who I was and I was really confident in who I was. So over the years, I realized, you know what, if there's something that happens that just makes me feel off, that's a sign that it's time to move on. It's time to shift. It's time to, and I didn't understand that in that way. Like I couldn't explain it back then, but now I understand that was my gut feeling, like guiding me in the right direction because it's always been a gut feeling,
Your intuition.
my intuition, and it was so powerful. And I shifted gears, and that changed the course of my life in so many different ways. And even when I moved to Montreal, I was in a very negative work environment, right? And I knew I needed to shift. And then things changed. And then I started my business, and then that changed the course of my life forever. And then so much has happened in the last 12 years since me starting my business that I couldn't even imagine a life like that. I couldn't even imagine the people that came into my life. Like you came into my life because I was growing my business. You, all these amazing friendships and people that just mean the world to me came as a result of me making those decisions. I just instinctively knew to trust my gut and trust myself and just follow the impulses, follow those signs that so many times we ignore because the outside world is telling us otherwise.
Mm.
And I realized that those were all just they were there to protect me and they were there to guide me and they were there to steer me in the right direction. And every encounter that I had, I don't really regret because it taught me so much about myself and it taught me so much about people and how to deal with people and all of the things. And yeah, and I feel like coming in as a mom, like also the pressure of you need to get married and you're my grandfather, my 90-year-old grandfather at the time was like, even though Kareem and I had been together for so long, but we were like taking our time and we are still in our 20s. It wasn't like he's 4 years older. So we were like later 20s and his time's passing by, your typical old-fashioned Lebanese grandfather. And that was his way of just loving, right? And I remember we planned our wedding in 2 months because then I just woke up and it was the right time. That's just for me, understanding who I am and how I make decisions. And same thing with having kids. Like we took a couple years before we started having kids. And it was just one of those things where I woke up and like, okay, I'm ready now. And it just all of those things just unfold and understanding. We've talked about this before is like I've done my human design and understanding who I am as a reflector, which is very rare, but understanding how I make decisions and how long it takes me to make those right decisions and why. I just started to understand all those decisions I made in my life and all of the times that everybody stood against me, but I still held on was because like I just knew instinctively that was the right thing for me in that moment. And every decision I make right now, even as a mom going through my birth, like I said, the one thing I do regret was that I got induced because there was medically no reason for it looking back. And because I did that, because I didn't trust that gut feeling of mine in that moment, my birth became so much harder than it needed to be, so much more painful than it needed to be. And so that was also a big turning point in my life and realizing I will never, ever let someone dictate what I do to make them comfortable or to make them fulfill their agenda ever again. And that's what happened with Jade. It was like just things just manifested and lined up the way I was hoping they would. And it was glorious. And I wish every woman could have a birth like that, like quick. And yes, it was painful in the moment, you guys. I can't tell you it wasn't painful. It is painful when you're pushing a 9 pound baby out of your pretty small body, you know what I mean? But it was exhilarating at the same time. But it's also because I trusted myself so much in making my decisions. And I had an amazing support system, obviously. Like you and I talked about so much about rights and what we're allowed and what we're not. And all of the things you held space for me, which I'm so grateful for because you gave me the okay to make the decisions for myself. And I'm very blessed because I have a very supportive husband who trusts me in making those decisions. We've been together 22 years. We were like teenagers, right? And he was like, whatever you want to do, this is your body and I trust you. Unless there's a medical emergency, that's a different story. But he was like, what is it that you want to do? What feels right for you? And obviously, he trusted you as well to allow you into that space. And he just moved away. And he was like, that's you. You get to do that. You get to decide. And he was just there to support. And I feel so grateful. And he does that in everything in my life. So
You have a really good husband who is also intuitive to what you need, and he's very in tune in how he best serves your family. And I think that's one of the things I really love about being your friend is I get to watch you guys be such a great, strong couple that know how to work with each other, where I think a lot of couples almost work against each other, not because they choose to, but because they just haven't done the work or they don't know how or they're unhealed themselves. And I think I'm very lucky to also have a very intuitive partner who we work really well together. And it's hard to find friends that have that same relationship. And so I find myself a lot of times holding back from talking about mine and Nicholas's relationship because I can't relate to people who have so much trouble within their relationship, and that's something I've never had to do with you. I've always been able to be so honest and open, and I can brag about Nicholas without you feeling bad because you know what it's like to have an amazing husband that trusts you, and you're a strong couple, and you guys work, like I say, together and with one another as a unit versus two different people trying to just make it work, which
I'll
almost
tell you, it wasn't all rainbows and sprinkles.
and it
We've
never
worked,
is.
yeah,
Yeah. I
we've
don't want
worked
to
so
paint that.
hard. Yeah, we've worked so hard to get to this point.
Same.
We've had to work on it for so many years because it wasn't always like that because we saw things very differently. And we were very young when we started dating and then we moved like we had 5 year long distance relationships. So there was a lot of growth that had to happen. But there was also a lot of outside pressure from family because we did grow up in a traditional family. And even with my oldest birth, deciding to want to give birth at the birthing center, this was before early on in the pregnancy. There was pressure from him and members of his family because they were in the medical field and they're like, oh, that's too dangerous. That's this. They just didn't understand how it worked.
And they
You know,
wanted you to have your baby in the hospital because that's what they
exactly.
trusted.
Exactly. And I wasn't going to have it. I was like, no. And then I think my husband realized then that he needs to trust me and trust my body. I'm not going to have outside pressure from people at all, at all. Especially people who aren't involved in this relationship in this space. You know what I mean? But that's just how it is. Family always butts in when they don't need to. And I know it's not coming from like a malice place. It's just coming
Totally.
from a place of caring. But sometimes you have to trust people that they've done the work, especially people who aren't irresponsible. You know what I mean? And people who I surround myself with people who know what they're doing. You know me. I do my research, I think more than most people I've
Yeah,
ever met.
I
In
agree with that.
anything and everything, not just in anything and everything, as little as like picking out a pasta to making big life decisions. That's just the way I am. And so when I make decisions, it's not done lightly. When I make medical decisions or choices or whatever it is, I have brooded for so long before I make that final decision. It drives my husband crazy a little bit, but again, understanding me and my human design, how I operate, that's just the way I operate. And but I once I get to that point of making that final decision that feels so right in my body, I have never in my life regretted that decision. But I have regretted decisions that I was pushed into every single time. And so me right now as a almost 41-year-old, I'll be 41 in May. It's like I've just been able to, this last year, I would say, since turning 40, especially, I've just created this boundary, this very strong boundary with that. It's do not pressure me into making decisions. I will listen to you. I will hear what you have to say. I will think about it, but I will make the decision that feels right for me in my own body at the right time without being rushed into it because I know in that case, I will not regret that decision just from past experiences. So,
That's one of the things that I think you've helped me so much with, especially in the beginning of our relationship, is you really gave me the confidence to say, listen to those nudges from the universe. Listen to what your intuition is telling you and lean into that. And I would say things like, I'm too scared to do it. And you would say, okay, it's going to be scary either way. It's going to be scary whether you lean into it or whether you go against what the universe is telling you. You're going to be scared. This is a scary thing you're doing. So you should lean into what your intuition is telling you. And it gave me the confidence to do that. And now I've been able to go out into the world and give other people that confidence. So I hope you see the ripple effect that you have been able to create for other people through me, which I think is very special. And I'm very grateful for you.
Thank you. I appreciate you saying that. And I remember the day you have been through so much in your business to get to where you are.
Yeah.
I, people don't know. They
Yeah.
don't know
People
unless
don't know.
they're in your circle. I was there when you went through some really hard times
Yeah.
because there were people out to bring you down. And that was not easy for you to climb that mountain.
Yeah.
And it takes a special kind of person to not give up. So I'm just really proud of you. Yeah.
I'm grateful to have had friends like you. Truly, you're one of my besties, and I say that, and I mean it. And we're like all the besties out there, where we don't have to talk every day, but when we do talk, we just pick right back up where we left off. And it's if I need something, I know that you're just a call away. I know that you'll always be there to help me. I know that you always know the right thing to say. Yikes! I don't know why I'm crying so much. I think we're very special to be able to have found a friendship like this because adulthood is really lonely. Motherhood is really lonely. I'm not a mom yet, but motherhood is very lonely, and being a woman is really lonely. And it's rare to find a friendship that just they understand you and they get you, and it's an instant
Judgment.
click. Totally
There's
no judgment. We never judge each other. We're never ever, we could bring each other the worst things and say, dude, I messed up so bad. And we'd say, okay, you're allowed to mess up. It's all right. How are we going to make this right? How are we going to fix this one? And I think that is actually very special. And a lot of people, especially women, don't have that type of friendship. And that makes me sad. My heart breaks for those people who feel so lonely and they don't have a Catherine in their life.
I feel the same way. Thank you so
Well,
much.
I want to hear about your induction. I guess I want our listeners to hear about your induction. I've heard about it already, but tell us about that experience because I think inductions get a lot of bad rep out there and they're definitely harder. You talked about it making your birth experience harder than it had to be, but it was also an experience that got you your breech birth. So, talk to us about what your induction was like, what that decision process was like, and what was going through your head when they were trying to tell you you have to be induced, but your intuition knew, I don't want to be induced.
Yeah, and I think my water broke around 3 o'clock that afternoon or something. And then because my mom was so worried that Zelda would come so quickly because of her experience, we rushed to the hospital. Whereas typically what would happen is the midwife, and this is the cool thing in Canada, is like at least in Montreal, the midwife would come to your home first if you're still early in your labor. And I wish I listened to my intuition on that. Again, it was one of those decisions that there was a fear behind it, which I understand because Zelda was breech. And I get that, you know what I mean? But what happens is the moment you're in the hospital, the midwife doesn't have much of a say. It's the doctors that take over. And I remember looking at her when they told me by 9 p.m. or 10 p.m. So it wasn't that long afterwards. I wasn't moving along. Things weren't moving. And because my water had broken, they were like, oh, you have a risk. There's always a risk of infection. Even though baby was normal, I was normal, super healthy pregnancy, super healthy body in general. Never any complications other than just having her be breech. So there was like, okay, if by 10 p.m. nothing happens, we'll just have to. And I remember looking at the midwife and she says, that is your decision to make. Like, I can't tell you what to do. And I almost in that moment wish she told me what to do because I was just bombarded by so many people telling me what to do. And it was my first time around, first experience. There was a little bit of fear there, obviously. And then finally, we're like, okay, let's just induce because they were pressuring me to do that. Literally, they were like, you have to be induced. And then things started to things started to move. And I
Have
started
they
to get
started you with Pitocin? Is that what happened? They put you on Pitocin.
exactly. And then contractions started. And then I don't remember the timing exactly, but I remember at one point they just started to come. And then when they were really, this was like overnight because Zelda wasn't born until 7 in the morning the next day. And I remember there were moments I was screaming. Literally, when the contraction would come, I was literally like roaring from the pain to the point that my mom actually started to cry because she was there. And she had never gone through that kind of pain during birth. She didn't have anything like that. So I don't think she realized that the kind of pain I went through. And again, I didn't want an epidural. That was my decision. That's not me saying that's what you need to do. Absolutely not. Everybody, some people are like, before they even are pregnant, they're like, I'm definitely getting an epidural. And that's fine if that's what you want. For me, not being in control of my body freaked me out a lot. Going through that feeling and experience of actually birthing my child and actually feeling that energy was very important to me because I was so connected to my unborn kid baby at the time. It's just, there was just something, there was such a connection that I needed to go through that experience. And being induced took away a little bit of that experience because the pain was so much and the contractions were so uncontrollable. I couldn't control the contractions. Whereas, like, when you're not induced, you could use different techniques and breathing and stuff where you're able to tune into your body and talk to your body almost. When you're unnaturally being induced, that's a different story. That it's just, it takes over your body. And that was also something I didn't want, but again, I was pressured into doing it. Pain was there. It was very painful. But again, I remember the next day because I was in the hospital and the nurse kept coming in and trying to wake me up to feed my baby. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm dying from exhaustion here. And I just was not comfortable with that. And so the doctor came to see me the next day. So the doctor that was supposed to be at my birth couldn't be at the birth because his wife was sick or something. So somebody else delivered my baby. I had a whole team and they were great. But the doctor, my actual doctor, came in to see me the next day. And I said, I really need to go home. Like, knowing that I had a midwife that was coming to check on me and the baby for a few weeks afterwards, he was like, okay, I'll give you the okay. And I remember walking to the elevator, and the doctor that delivered my baby looked at me and says, are you okay? We've never seen anything like this before. And I'm
Wow.
shocked that you're actually standing right now and going home less than 24 hours later. I'm like, I'm fine. I just want to go home. I just don't want to be in this uncomfortable space with someone waking me up all night trying to feed my baby who's perfectly fine. So, yeah, it's just, I think I feel like the medical system is the medical system, at least in North America in general. I'm not going to talk to the rest of the world or Europe or other places because that could be a different experience. So, yeah, I don't know. I just feel if I were to do it again, I would not have been induced. That was just the one thing I regret about my birth. That's just it because it was medically unnecessary. There was no high risk of infection in my case. The baby was fine, heart rate was fine, everything was fine.
You weren't
But
getting cervical checks, so that risk was being mitigated.
yeah.
And you
Oh,
would have stayed home, which would have mitigated it even further.
and that was the other thing I regret is not listening to myself, but listening to outside sources, if you will. It's not, we need to go to the hospital. And I get where it's coming from, but
Totally.
also knowing that I had a midwife there who is a medically trained professional and has done hundreds and hundreds of births. You know what I mean? I think I just should have listened to myself and my midwife a little bit more in those couple of moments. But yeah, that's why in my second birth, I was like, nope, I am trusting myself all the way. And I'm trusting the people that I trust around me. Because I did surround myself, obviously, with you. And I had great midwives. And I trusted you guys to know in the moments when I couldn't fully make those decisions for myself, that you would honor what I would want done. And I think that was the thing that you gave me that peace of mind is, and that you're very big on that, is what are the decisions you want to make in those moments when you're out of control, when you're feeling the pain, when you just want things to end or whatever it is, what are those decisions? Because when you're in that moment, you're not thinking, you're just like, I need that baby out. But there are sometimes like it's just knowing like what the decisions I would want made in that moment. And I think I feel really blessed to have had that, at least in my second birth. And my husband, who didn't butt in and just trusted us women to do what we know how to do. You know what I mean? He honors the fact that he can't relate to what we're going through because he'll never have to go through that. You know what I mean? And so, yeah.
But he did a really great job of bringing that gentle masculine energy. It was almost like a safeguard. He was almost like the guardian of your birth, where your midwife and you and I were working in that feminine energy, and he was just in the corner protecting all of us, making sure
Yeah.
that we were just there doing our thing. And if we needed him, he was there, but otherwise, he was just hanging. I relive your birth all the time because it was just so perfect. I think it's such a good depiction of how all the pieces can fall together to give you this perfect birth experience if you do the work beforehand and everyone understands their role and everyone trusts birth and everyone works together and nobody in the room brings fear or ego or tension into that space.
Right.
Birth works and it almost always does. Okay, my next question for you is, do you think, two things, do you think that you would have been able to push out your breech baby easier if you had been allowed to be off of your back? And do you think you would have been able to avoid an episiotomy if you had been allowed to be off of your back?
I don't know about the episiotomy. Probably yes, because I would have been in a different, but definitely push out. Yes, for sure. 100%. I don't believe that women should push out babies off of their back. It's just scientifically not the right position to do that. Again, that's my personal opinion. There's no judgment in any way possible. That's just my experience. Whereas when I had Jade, like I was crouching down and I was in that perfect position to push a 9 pound baby out of me so fast. And it was painful in that moment, but it was magical and exhilarating and just all of the feels at the same time. It was like just different. It was a different experience.
Would you say that it felt manageable? Like it was painful, yes, but it was manageable.
Oh, 100%. Oh, yeah. Like, hands down. It was painful, but it happened so fast for me that, but your body's in control. That's really what it is. You and your body are in control. And I just knew in that moment I had to push her out. And then the baby's also there. The baby has an energy and has a soul and has all of that. The baby's communicating with you at all times. But half the time we're not listening to what they're telling us. Whereas me, I've just over the years just been so in tune with, I loved being pregnant. So first, I never felt that nauseousness, like very rare. I would only feel nauseous after a very long day at work and I was really tired in the evening, but I never got that like severe nauseousness or anything. I had a great pregnancy, minus the swollen feet, like in the middle of August, walking when I'm like 9 months pregnant. But with Jade, I did go through that first trimester nauseousness. That was super uncomfortable. But other than that, I had amazing pregnancies. Like I was physically very healthy. I ate super well. Obviously, I had been doing that for years before. So prepping my body to be ready to become pregnant. And even though I was working and doing all the things, I was busy. I don't know, I had a beautiful, I don't know, I loved being pregnant. And even though my husband and I don't want more kids, like we got what we wanted and we're good, I miss those moments of being pregnant during that time, those good times of being pregnant. It just feels so good. I don't know. It just, yeah, it was good. And then with Jade at the end, because she wasn't breech, her head was further down. I was walking very wobbly at the end.
I remember.
And all of it was a first time experience because I didn't have that with Zelda. Zelda was so high up because she was breech. So I never had that issue. I walked the botanical garden 9 months pregnant in Montreal in the middle of August. This is me crazy, right? The whole botanical garden, but I didn't feel that head like right there and I didn't have to wobble the whole way. But I don't know. There were so many good moments during my pregnancy that I miss those moments. Obviously, not the nauseousness and the exhaustion and waking up in the middle of the night. Those are hard. They're hard to deal with, and it's a lot of change on your body in a short period of time. But I don't know. I feel like learning to just be in the moment more and just honor wherever you are in that moment and know that this is just a growth journey for you. Becoming a mom is a growth journey. It's just part of your evolution. And if that's a decision you make, if you don't want to be a mom, that's totally fine. But if you are pregnant and you're going through that, don't hold on to the past of what could have been, or my body changing, or, oh, I want to go back. Don't, because you're not the same person. Just honor who you are in this moment and honor the future you by just being present more. I think that's the lesson I would say to everybody, is just be more present. And that's a hard lesson to learn. And
Yeah.
we have to constantly remind ourselves of that. I do it to my kids all the time because they're always thinking, where are we going next? And what are we doing next? It's, no, we're not talking about next week. We're talking right now. What are we doing right now? Whatever it is that you're doing, just give your full energy and attention, and just the rest will figure itself out. At
Yeah.
least that's what I believe.
I believe that too, and in large part to you, right? It's another lesson that you've really been very strong in cultivating within me is be present. Don't worry about what is in 5 years, 10 years, 20 years. Be present right now because what you do right now impacts your 5, 10, 20 year outcome. So be present right now. Do what you need to do right now. Take care of yourself, your body, your spirit, your mind, your heart right now, and the rest of it will work out. And I think that goes back to you and I both being really powerful manifestors, and we trust the universe, we trust ourselves, we trust the process, whatever the process
We're
is
also
here now.
visionaries. We're also
Yes.
visionaries, and not a lot of people are. My husband is not.
Yeah.
I've always been like a butt heading a little bit because I see the bigger picture so clearly.
Yeah, me too.
It's so crazy to me. I can draw it all out in detail because
Mhm.
it's so crystal clear in my mind of where I want to be or where I want to go or things I want to do or whatever. But I've had to learn to keep that vision there and keep that vision alive while still being in the present moment and honoring that whatever I do now is what's going to allow me to create that. And there's no disconnect there. It's actually connected. There's a string that attaches from here to there. And if you're not in the present moment, if you're just rushing through everything and you're stressed about everything, and I've been there, done that so many times, that's going to change your vision of the future.
Mm.
So if you are a visionary and you have a hard time with just being more present, understand and honor the fact that for you to create that vision of your life or of your career or whatever you're doing right now is what's going to create that. Because what you do in this moment is creating the next moment and the next moment and the next moment. And trust with a big T, like so big. Trust in yourself, trust in the universe, God, whatever you want to call it, trust in you know, I mean, I've been through some really hard times and those come and go. And I know a lot of people do. And especially nowadays, there's a lot of stress, right? But I think I've just worked so much on training my mind to know that when I'm having a really bad day, a really tough day emotionally, sometimes you feel it, but you don't know what it is. You don't know why you're feeling like that. It's just standing in that moment. Like I literally would be walking from my office to my kitchen, let's say, and I'll just stop and I'll be like, okay, I know I'm having a rough day, but I know this is happening for a reason.
Mm.
I'm just going to stand in this moment and just be grateful that I actually have the awareness that this is happening and just go on with my day. Or find three things that you're grateful for. I used to use this with my kids all the time. So when Zelda was young and she'd have a fit like at the mall, like laying on the floor, typical toddler, I literally would stand her up and be like, look at me right now and tell me three things you're grateful for right now. She'd be like 3 years old or 4 years old, and I'd make her do that. And it would just snap her out of it. And I do that with my kids all the time. Or when they're bickering so much, I'm like, you stop right now and you tell me three things that you love about your sister, right? Back and forth. And sometimes it's hard in that moment. But it's just learning these tools. And those are things that I've learned just from building my own business and doing a lot of that personal growth. But I take it and I apply it not just in my business, but in every area of my life is like, just stop and just look around you. Like I grew up during a war, right? When we were going through COVID, I was so grateful that I could at least walk outside and take my kids for a walk because during a war, we can't do that because you'd basically probably not make it out alive in 15 minutes. We'd have to be hiding or whatever. So it's all about perspective. Being grateful is all about perspective. There's always something to be grateful for, always in that moment. As little as taking a pen and writing with something and oh, my pen's actually working. I'm actually grateful for that because how annoying is it when you grab a pen and it's not working, right? Like those are the little things that I'm talking about. And the more you learn to do that and the more you create a habit around that in those really tough moments, that's when the magic starts to happen in your life. I promise you. Because it's all about raising your vibration. When you raise your vibration, that's when you start to attract those higher frequency experiences and people and events and all of the things in your life.
And I think you can feel that, right? I actually think that's why you and I are so attracted together, so attracted to one another. We're so magnetic to one another, is because our vibes, not to be like match the vibe, but like our vibrations are just high and we just operate there. That's our baseline. Now, not to say that we never have low vibes, because we have bad days, we have bad things happen to us, we have traumas that we encounter, but we recover and we go back to our baseline of having just a high vibration. And that doesn't mean high vibes as in like anxious and erratic. We just operate at a higher vibration of gratitude, of happiness, of being present, of trusting. And that's just like where we live. That's our norm.
Yeah. That's why when we're having bad days, we're like, what is going on? I
Yeah.
do not like that feeling. And I need to be out of it as soon as possible.
Yeah, how do I get out of this feeling? Oh my goodness. Okay, I want you to tell the listeners, I know your girls. I'm very blessed in being able to have a relationship with your family and your girls, but I want you to tell the audience about their different personalities and how that relates to their birth stories, because Zelda being breech and having a longer, harder birth, but one that transformed you in a way that you could have literally never seen, is so Zelda. And Jade being this birth that, really pushed you to dig into yourself and really pushed you to have boundaries with other people in your life, is so Jade. So enlighten the listeners and just tell them how it just tracks so beautifully and perfectly for each of your girls.
It's so crazy because they were born 5 years and 2 days apart. And they look so alike. Like their
So
bodies
alive.
are like the same
Copy
exact
paste.
body. And obviously they look like sisters and they're so cute and all of that. But yes, Zelda, she is the world changer. She is coming to change this world in ways bigger than I could have ever even imagined.
Yeah.
And even still today, she's 11 and a half and she hates being told what to do. She has always been like that because she's just so intuitive with herself. She just knows and
She always has been.
yeah, and she's fitting into a mold, which is really hard for her to do. And my husband and I, just from witnessing what's going on around us a lot in this generation, we are very strict about boundaries with our kids, and we've had to learn to become more strict about boundaries as we got become parents of two kids because we realize that kids actually thrive when you create boundaries around them while still giving them the freedom and flexibility to be themselves, obviously. But Zelda struggled a little bit with that. She's had to learn how to adapt to that because she just wants to go out and she's like when you understand also her human design as a manifester, it's like she's just the one that comes up with the idea that needs to go out and manifest that. And that's hard. It's not easy to be that when you're 10 or 11 or 9 or 8 and you're still living within a household and you're still living within a society. So as a parent, it's not easy managing that because you want to give her the space and the freedom to be herself and express, which we're very big on, but still keep her within boundaries because as a child who doesn't have a fully developed brain, they need those boundaries, especially in today's world. So we're finding that dynamic. But yes, that is so Zelda. Being breech and not wanting to turn. Because we tried, okay, so we tried so I did the acupuncture, I did the aversion. I used to sit on the couch with my feet up and then I would have the big headphones. And we used to listen to the song from CCR, Have You Ever Seen the Rain? And it was like on repeat. And I remember a moment, I have to find that video and send that to you because I was singing that to her while I was changing her diaper one day and she just started to sing with me. And it was like she was listening this whole time, but knowing that she is not budging and does not want to move. Okay. But that is so her. That's just the way she operates. And I love and honor that because she's teaching me how to be more flexible with that. And that's hard because I grew up in a traditional patriarchal society, tough, upbringing, tough childhood, all of the things. Whereas Jade is, she's just Jade. She's pointing out things and makes you aware of things because she's so observant of everything and she's not scared to share that with you. And to me, she points out things to me like, oh my God, Jade, how did you even notice that? Or Jade, how did, but it's like she brings me right back into alignment. She's always there to just bring me right back into alignment. And she's just a little love bug. She's just, yeah. So, but she's feisty and she's loud and she's energetic. But both of my kids are like that. Like they say having kids, like girls are quiet. It ain't quiet in my household. They are like up at 6, bouncing off the walls, like, Zelda's like teaching Jade how to hang from the railing of the stairs at 3 years old. Like literally, I go into the other room and there's my 3-year-old hanging, literally climbing up the railings of the stairs. This is what my kids do. Last year they were climbing on the roof trying to grab the frisbee, the lower roof, not the big huge high roof, but it's still a roof. And they just helped themselves to the ladder to grab the frisbee and they realized it's actually fun playing frisbee up there. So they were both up there. This is just my life with these kids. It's always, but it's cool to see that dynamic between them because they're both very strong personalities. But then, like yesterday, they're supposed to be in bed. And then I realized Zelda snuck into Jade's room and they were sitting there and they were laughing. And so I recorded it on the thing. And I was like, those are the moments that are so precious when I see them like together playing or laughing. Yeah, it's just, I couldn't have asked for more perfect children and just they're healthy. And that's the most important part. They are healthy, happy, beautiful souls. Like just, oh, beautiful kids. They are kind and they love good food because like I cook so much and they appreciate that. And yeah, it's just, and they challenge my husband too because it's not easy for my husband with 3 women at home and he knows that. But they challenge him too. They are not scared to stand up to anybody. And I love that about them. I love that. Yeah.
Oh my gosh, you guys really are such a beautiful family, and I am just really blessed and grateful to be part of your lives. And I'm grateful that you came into my life when you did, and I'm grateful to be able to be part of your story. And it really was just such an honor. I know that people come and go in your life. I'm very lucky that you are someone who has come and stayed. And
The same way.
I know how lucky I am for that.
Thank you. Oh.
Yeah. Is there anything else that you want our listeners to hear about your birth stories, about finding your voice, about advocating, motherhood, any of that?
I would say surround yourself with the people who are going to listen and who are going to support you in using your voice for whatever it is that you believe in. And really trusting in yourself so much more than you think you do. Really, even more. Because when we do, we know what the truth is and we know what is right and wrong for us, right? For us. It might not be the right or wrong for your neighbor. But for you in this moment, you are here on this planet to live your life, not anybody else's life. So break the chains around you of what you think you should do or you think you should be or whatever it is, and just honor who you are and what you're meant to do on this planet and in this lifetime. And I feel like when you do that, especially if you're a parent or a parent to be, you allow your children to do the same thing. Because I feel our generation is the generation that is breaking those generational curses and those generational cycles. We are working so hard to break free of that and to move forward. And we are the ones that are paving the way for our kids to do that. Like we talk about our kids one day traveling the world and studying in different places in the world. Even though we would always want them close to us, we want them to go and experience life however it is that they want. They don't want to go to college, they want to go study something else. We're fine with that. My kids, they are smart. And if I could go down the old-fashioned path and force them into this and that, and I don't want to do that because I want them to, we have to trust our kids a little bit more too, because our kids, they just know deep down inside, they know if you've created a space for them to thrive and you've created those boundaries to help them grow and thrive, but also you got to give them a little bit more space to just be themselves so that you can understand who they are and who they're meant to be in this world. And it's a struggle when you have strong-willed children, because I have two of them. It is a struggle. There are days where I'm just about to lose it, but it's also honoring that space. So don't be scared to use your voice, even when the world around you thinks you're crazy. Just don't shy away from that, because I have lived that whole life. So many people have told me not to use my voice my whole entire life because it was too much. I was too opinionated, or I was too loud, or whatever. But when I realized that at the end of the day, it's because it made them uncomfortable about themselves. It had nothing to do with me. Whether it was an adult or another kid at school or whatever, it had nothing to do with me. It had to do with their insecurities. Honor that you are meant to be on this planet in this time right now. And you are meant to do great things, whatever that looks like for you, whatever makes you happy. Just do more things that make you happy. Use your voice. Don't be scared and advocate for what you feel is right or wrong, right? And just, I don't know, just pave the way for the new generation, because there is so much this generation is dealing with right now. So much mental health. I see that in kids all the time. Don't take the easy way out and just put kids on phones and social media. They're not meant to be there. They're not. Just be more active as a parent. There are other ways to spend time with kids and give them space and give them freedoms without sticking them on a screen and a social media platform. There just are other healthier ways to allow them to thrive, because it's really sad what's happening in our generation today. I'm witnessing happen all around us, and that's why we had to buckle in on boundaries. And it's really helped our kids thrive. Like, my kids have traveled the world without us parents, by the way. We're not always there with them at such young ages. And it's because we've been able to just create that boundary for them to still be themselves, but understand that they are 6 and 11. They're not 25 and 20, right? They are 11, and 11-year-old's brain is not fully developed. And my kid knows that very well. Even though she doesn't want to hear that, she understands that. I will share one really quick thing, though. We did this on Sunday. We did a whole 80s day. So we grew up in Lebanon. Like, we used to lose electricity like several times a day. And then back in the 80s, we didn't have on demand and pausing and all of the things. So we did a whole day of them living in the 80s. You had to wait till a certain time to watch your show. So we made them watch like 1987 Ninja Turtles. And then, oops, the electricity went out. So then luckily the TV wasn't working properly, so it made him repeat the show. But usually, you know, like, was some glitches happening in the app. So anyway, it was really fun to do that, but just to have them like experience what it was like to, just for us as a generation, to live in the 80s and realize that we didn't get to have all these choices. So it's fun to do these things with your kids. And we were having a blast doing it. And Jade got so in the mood. She lit up candles and was walking around with candles. I'm like, yep, that was basically our childhood. Zelda hated every minute of it, but it was fine. You know what I mean? But that's just, yeah. So it's fun to do those things just to change perspective for your kids too. But just honestly, like, life is hard sometimes. It is hard. It's not hard. It's not easy living in today's world, but there's so much magic all around us. And I think we just need to just do more joyful things and just find those moments in our day where we're just those little magical moments, those laughs with your family, or just you being with yourself and just feeling really good in that moment. Or those are the moments that I try to grab every day and just try to, when I see, like the other day, we were like dancing in the kitchen, and my husband doesn't usually do much of that, but he just got so into that moment with the kids, and we were switching around, and we had like 60s music on. And in that moment, I just stood there and I'm like, I don't want to think of anything else but right now, because it was so magical. It's such a core memory that these kids are creating and they're building in there. And it's just, if we could just do more of those, I think our world will be a better place. So,
Just taking the time to be present and recognizing the things that you're grateful for, that you have gratitude for, that you are blessed to have in your life. Oh, Catherine, you're always filled with so many good lessons. If people wanted to connect with you, if they wanted to hear more about your story, if they wanted to work with you, how can they do that? How can they connect you, and where can they find you?
The best place would be Instagram or Facebook. You can reach me through Instagram at my name, Katherine Debs, Facebook, same thing, Messenger. And then I'm working on some branding now, so I'll have a new website soon and stuff. But yeah, I love chatting with people and just even starting, just having a conversation. And I'm always here if anybody ever wants just to chat and share their story or just want to hear someone's perspective. I'm always open, always. Yeah, super fun.
Oh my gosh, Catherine, thank you so much for being here with me today. It really was
Happy.
so much fun. I love to share you with people in my life because you've been just such a good influence in my life, and I want other people to be able to reap the benefits of that same thing. My cheeks are officially hurting from smiling so hard for so long through this whole episode. Thank you for coming on and helping us find our voice, for helping us dig deep and find that confidence and giving us permission to speak up, to speak out, to set boundaries, to say no, to advocate for the things that we want, even if the people around us are telling us that we shouldn't or we can't or it's not possible. You are such a beautiful reminder of yes, you can, and yes, it is possible. So thanks for being here. All right, you guys, I will see you in the next episode. Be sure to follow Catherine on social media, and you can find me at Tranquility by HeHe and at the.birth.lounge. Until next time, head to your app store and download the Birth Lounge app for evidence-based childbirth education and data-driven postpartum support delivered straight to your phone. Bye! Thank you so much for tuning in today. I truly do value this community and I love hanging out with you. You deserve to have a birth that you love with a provider that values your autonomy and respects informed consent. It's an honor to be your go-to gal when it comes to preparing for your baby. If you found today's episode helpful, share it with a friend. Share it with someone who could use evidence-based information to help them have an informed and confident birth. I'd love to hear what you have to say and read your sweet words. By leaving us a review, you are helping other expectant mamas and their families find the podcast so that we can reduce birth trauma and improve maternity care in the U.S. one birth at a time. If you're interested in joining the Birth Lounge, go to thebirthlounge.com. If you want to connect with me on socials, you can find me at Tranquility by HeHe on all platforms. Until next time, stay educated, stay supported, stay confident. Bye.